What if I told you that the youngest, most vulnerable slave in a harem didn't just escape her fate, but rewrote the rules of the world's most powerful empire? Forget everything you think you know about harems and concubines. Today, on Herstory, we're going to unearth the odyssey of a woman who, with pure intelligence and cunning, rose from being a nameless prisoner to the most influential woman in the Ottoman Empire. Get ready, because this is the story of Hürrem, the slave who conquered a sultan and dominated an empire. Hello, lovers of jaw-dropping stories. Welcome back to Herstory, the place where we unearth the lives of women who not only defied expectations, but rewrote history. Get ready, because today we're diving into the complete odyssey of our famous Hürrem Sultan. Our protagonist, before becoming the legendary Hürrem, answered to the name Alexandra Lisowska. She was born around 1502 in what is today Ukraine, into a humble family of an Orthodox priest. Her life unfolded with the relative tranquility of a young woman of her time. But, as we well know, history takes unexpected turns. Around the age of 15, Alexandra's life took a drastic and brutal turn. She was captured by Crimean Tatars, who sold her into slavery. Yes, slavery was a common and heartbreaking practice in those times. From being a free young woman, Alexandra suddenly found herself in a nightmare, being sold and resold in slave markets until she ended up in the pulsating heart of the Ottoman Empire, the imperial harem in Istanbul. Imagine the harem. It wasn't just a place of concubines and eunuchs as it is often portrayed. It was a complex institution, a center of administrative and social power for the dynasty's women. For a newly arrived slave, the harem could be a golden cage or a path to a new life. Many settled for servitude or, with luck, a comfortable life without real power. But Alexandra, who was now given a new Persian name, Hürrem, meaning the joyful or the cheerful one, was not one of those. From the very beginning, Hürrem displayed a combination of beauty, sharp intelligence, and undeniable charisma. She adapted quickly, learning Turkish, Persian, and the customs of the court. She didn't just memorize, she understood and, most importantly, knew how to use her skills to her advantage. While others might have competed with more obvious tricks, Hürrem, according to historians, played a more sophisticated game. Have you ever found yourself in a completely new and alien place, having to reinvent yourself to survive? Tell me about your experience in the comments. It's fascinating to see how adversity can push people to discover unexpected strengths. And so, the joyful Hürrem began to ascend through the ranks of the harem. Her goal was not just survival, but something much grander. And who was the center of this universe? None other than Suleiman the Magnificent, the most powerful sultan in the world at that time. A man of laws, of wars, of culture, and yes, also of a heart that, though it seemed impregnable, was about to be conquered by a slave with an intellectual spark. Suleiman, accustomed to the beauties of the harem, found something different in Hürrem. She wasn't just beautiful, she was witty, cultivated, and capable of holding a conversation that went beyond flattery. Chronicles suggest that Hürrem recited poetry to him, discussed politics, and challenged him intellectually. In a world where concubines were primarily objects of pleasure or mothers of heirs, Hürrem dared to be a companion, a confidant, an equal, at least intellectually. What happened next was a historical turning point in the Ottoman court. Suleiman, in an unprecedented act for an Ottoman sultan in centuries, married Hürrem. Yes, you heard that right. He married her. This was not a simple promotion from concubine to favorite. He made her his legal wife, his Haseki Sultan, the principal consort. The scandal was enormous. It broke with centuries of tradition, where sultans avoided marrying harem women to prevent the influence of their families and maintain the purity of the dynastic line. But Suleiman was deeply in love, or perhaps he saw in Hürrem not only love, but an indispensable strategic ally. Now, this is where we need to be very clear about historical reality versus popular fiction. The idea of a constant and open rivalry between Hürrem and Suleiman's sisters, like Sultan Hatice or Shah, is largely dramatic license from TV series and novels. Historical sources suggest that relations within the imperial family were complex, but there's no solid evidence of fierce public enmity between Hürrem and the Sultan's sisters. In fact, Ottoman princesses enjoyed high status and their own incomes. They rarely directly interfered in harem struggles for the Sultan's attention, as their position was secure by birth. Regarding Suleiman's mother, Sultan Hafsa Valide Sultan, history also differs from fiction. Hafsa, as Valide Sultan, Mother Sultan, was the most powerful woman in the empire before Hürrem's ascent to Haseki. She wielded immense authority and was the primary administrator of the harem. Historical sources indicate that Hafsa supported and protected Hürrem in her early years in the harem. There are records of Hürrem, as a newcomer, writing respectful letters to Hafsa, seeking her guidance. The Valide Sultan was a figure of stability, and there are no historical indications of a direct or open rivalry with Hürrem. Her role was to maintain order and harmony, and she seems to have exerted that influence. The true and documented rivalry was between Hürrem and Mahidevran Sultan, the mother of Prince Mustafa. This truly was an intense power struggle for Suleiman's favor and succession, a very real dynamic within the Ottoman system where the future of a concubine and her children depended entirely on her position with the Sultan. Hürrem did not settle for the title of wife. With 6 children alongside Suleiman, including the future Sultan Selim II, she consolidated her position. But her ambition, or her survival instinct, depending on how you look at it, did not stop there. Hürrem exerted unprecedented political influence. She became Suleiman's trusted advisor on matters of state, diplomacy, and even palace intrigues. She received ambassadors, wrote letters to European monarchs, and is considered one of the key figures at the beginning of the Sultanate of Women, a period where women of the Ottoman dynasty wielded considerable power. Hürrem's life, despite her immense power, was not without personal pain and tragedy, especially the loss of her own children. The first of her children to pass away, Shehzade Abdullah, died in infancy. However, one of the most devastating losses for Hürrem and Suleiman was that of their favorite son, and possibly the most promising for the throne, Shehzade Mehmed. Mehmed, who was considered by Suleiman as his main heir due to his talent and character, died in 1543 at the young age of 22, probably from smallpox. This death was a tremendous blow to both parents. Suleiman was so grief-stricken that he ordered the construction of a monumental mosque in Istanbul, the Shehzade Mosque, in his memory, an unprecedented honor for a deceased prince. For Hürrem, losing Mehmed meant not only a mother's pain, but also the loss of whom she saw as the ideal successor to secure the future of her lineage on the throne. This tragedy undoubtedly intensified her determination to ensure the ascent of her remaining children. Here's where we enter one of the darkest and most debated episodes of Hürrem's life, her alleged involvement in the execution of Prince Mustafa. Mustafa was Suleiman's eldest son and Mahidevran's son, and the most popular heir to the throne, beloved by both the people and the army. His popularity was such that it was feared he might usurp the throne prematurely, or even depose Suleiman. Historical accounts, though nuanced, suggest that Hürrem played a crucial role in the events leading to Mustafa's death. She, along with Grand Vizier Rustem Pasha, who married Hürrem and Suleiman's daughter Mihrima, reportedly sowed doubts in Suleiman's mind about Mustafa's loyalty. It is believed that they fabricated letters and spread rumors, suggesting that Mustafa was conspiring with the Janissaries, the elite Ottoman military, to overthrow his father. In 1553, during a military campaign in Persia, Suleiman summoned Mustafa to his tent. Despite warnings from his supporters, Mustafa complied. There, he was strangled by the Sultan's mutes, a common practice for executing members of royalty without shedding blood. This execution caused immense shock and mourning throughout the empire. Shortly after Mustafa's tragic death, another of Hürrem and Suleiman's sons, Shehzade Cihangir, also passed away in 1553. Cihangir was born with a spinal deformity, a hump, that caused chronic health problems. Although he was greatly loved by his father for his wit and good character, his health was always fragile. Chronicles suggest that Mustafa's death deeply affected him. Cihangir greatly admired his half-brother Mustafa, and it is said that his already precarious health rapidly deteriorated due to grief and shock over Mustafa's execution. His death was another harsh trial for Suleiman and Hürrem, who had already endured the loss of Mehmed. The deaths of Mustafa and subsequently Cihangir paved the way for one of Hürrem's sons, Selim, to ascend to the throne, as her other son, Bayezid, was executed years later, also under suspicious circumstances, that some historians attribute to Hürrem's influence in the rivalry between brothers. It is important to note that while Hürrem's influence on Suleiman's decision is widely accepted by historians, the ultimate responsibility lies with the Sultan. In the Ottoman Empire, the Sultan held absolute power over the life and death of his subjects, including his own children. However, history presents Hürrem as a relentless strategist who did not hesitate to protect the future of her own children at all costs in a ruthless system of succession. Beyond the intrigues and drama, Hürrem Sultan left an indelible mark on the Ottoman Empire and beyond. She was a great patron of the arts and culture. She understood that power was not only exercised from the throne, but also through cultural influence and benevolence. She financed the construction of mosques, schools, public baths and hospitals, many of which still stand today, such as the iconic Haseki Hürrem Sultan Mosque in Istanbul. These public works not only improved the lives of common people, but also solidified her image as a pious and generous leader. Her correspondence with monarchs and leaders from other countries, such as Sigismund II, Augustus of Poland, demonstrates her diplomatic cunning and her interest in maintaining good international relations, or at least keeping an eye on what was happening outside the Ottoman borders. She was a true diplomat in the shadows, proving that a woman's power could extend beyond the palace walls. Hürrem Sultan passed away in 1558, leaving an immense void in Suleiman's heart and in the structure of the empire. Her legacy, as we have already said, endured. Her story is a powerful reminder that even in the most adverse circumstances, intelligence, determination, and sharp strategic ability can lead to extraordinary achievements. She was a woman who, despite initially being a slave, rose to the pinnacle of power, defying the norms of her time and, in the process, irrevocably changed Ottoman history. Now, the question we always ask ourselves here at Herstory: how do we judge her? Was Hürrem an admirable figure, a survivor who fought for her place in an unforgiving world? Or was she a controversial figure who used every means at her disposal, including some we would consider questionable today, to secure her power and that of her children in a brutal system? It's a complex conversation with no easy answers, and that is precisely why her story continues to fascinate us centuries later. What do you think after learning the historical nuances? Do you believe Hürrem was a misunderstood hero or a figure who simply adapted to the cruel rules of the Ottoman power game? Leave your opinion in the comments. I love reading your different viewpoints and creating enriching debate. If this deep dive into the life of Hürrem Sultan has fascinated you as much as it has me, don't forget to subscribe to Herstory so you don't miss any upcoming stories about incredible women who defied fate.